Why the Bible stands completely alone in human history. 7 dimensions of uniqueness. Let me ask you something. If someone walked up to you on the street and said, "Hey, I've got a book for you. It was written over 1,500 years by more than 40 authors on 3 different continents in 3 different languages, and somehow every single author agrees on the same central message," what would you say? You'd probably say that's impossible. And yet, that's exactly the claim the Bible makes about itself. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Here we go, another religious video trying to sell me something. I get it, I really do. But here's what I want to do today. I don't want to ask you to believe anything just yet. I want to show you something. I want to put the Bible under the same kind of rational, historical, and intellectual scrutiny you'd apply to any serious claim, and let the evidence speak for itself. Because what we're going to discover together is this. The Bible is not just another religious book. It is the most unique document in human history. Whether you're a committed Christian wanting to go deeper, a skeptic who's never taken the Bible seriously, or someone genuinely searching for truth, this conversation is for you. Let's start at the beginning. The word unique gets thrown around a lot these days. Everything is unique. Your coffee order is unique. Your playlist is unique. But Webster's dictionary defines the word unique in a much more demanding way. The only one of its kind, without equal, without comparison. That's a high bar. Now, over the course of my study, I've come across this fascinating account from a professor named Montiero-Williams, who held the Sanskrit chair at Oxford, the prestigious Bowdoin professorship. He spent 42 years studying the sacred texts of the Eastern religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and comparing them to the Bible. And here is what this Oxford scholar concluded. Pile all those sacred books on the left side of your study table, but place your own holy Bible on the right side, all by itself, all alone, and with a wide gap between them. For there is a gulf between it and the so-called sacred books of the East, which severs the one from the other, utterly, hopelessly, and forever. That's not a man selling religion. That's a scholar reporting what he found after 4 decades of serious comparative research. So what makes the Bible so uniquely different? Let me walk you through 7 dimensions of its uniqueness. And then I want to give you a challenge at the end that I think will genuinely surprise you. 7 ways the Bible stands completely alone. The first thing that sets the Bible apart is what I'd call its miraculous unity. Here are the facts, and these are just the historical facts, not the theological claims. The Bible was written over a 1,500-year span by more than 40 different authors across 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe, in 3 different languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, in wildly different circumstances, from a palace to a prison, from a battlefield to an island of exile. The authors include a shepherd named Amos, a military general named Joshua, a tax collector named Matthew, a physician named Luke, a king named David, a tent maker and former Pharisee named Paul, a fisherman named Peter. These men didn't know each other. Most of them lived centuries apart. They wrote in different cultures, different political climates, different emotional states. And yet, here's what is extraordinary. They agree. Not just on minor things, they agree on the major things, on the nature of God, on the human condition, on the problem of sin, on the nature of justice and mercy, on the solution, redemption through a coming Messiah. From Genesis to Revelation, there is one unfolding story. The paradise lost in Genesis becomes the paradise regained in Revelation. The tree of life, whose access was closed in Genesis chapter 3, is opened again for believers in Revelation chapter 22. The God who creates in the first chapter of the Bible is the same God who restores all things in the final chapter. Now, think about this comparison. There's a famous collection of Western thought called Great Books of the Western World. It contains 450-plus works by nearly 100 authors spanning 2,500 years. Authors like Homer, Plato, Aristotle, Shakespeare, Kant, Darwin, Tolstoy, the greatest minds of Western civilization. Do they agree? Hardly. They contradict each other constantly. They debate, they argue, they overturn each other's ideas. And yet the Bible, with its 40-plus authors across 15 centuries, speaks with a coherent, unified voice. There's only one rational explanation for that kind of unity across that kind of diversity. The second unique characteristic is its extraordinary reach. A best-selling book might sell hundreds of thousands of copies. A phenomenon like Harry Potter or the Da Vinci Code might sell tens of millions. That's genuinely impressive. But no book in human history comes remotely close to the circulation of the Bible. The Bible has sold and been distributed over 5 billion copies. To put that in perspective, in a single year, 1998, the United Bible Societies alone distributed over 588 million complete Bibles, New Testaments, and Scripture portions. That's just one organization, in 1 year. The Cambridge History of the Bible puts it plainly. No other book has known anything approaching this constant circulation. Now, does sheer volume prove divine inspiration? No, but it does raise a serious question. What is it about this book that has compelled people across every culture, every century, every language, every social class to seek it out, copy it, translate it, and treasure it? Something extraordinary is happening here. Which brings us to the third dimension, its translations. Most books are never translated at all. A successful book might be translated into 5 or 10 languages. That's considered remarkable. The Bible has been translated into over 20,200 languages and dialects. There are approximately 60,500 languages spoken in the world today. The Bible has been translated into languages covering more than 90% of the world's population. And the work continues. Organizations like Wycliffe Bible Translators have over 6,000 workers active in more than 50 countries, working on translations into over 850 different languages. Many of those are languages that have never had a written form before. The Bible is the first book those communities will ever have in their own tongue. The Bible is also one of the earliest texts ever to be translated. Around 250 BC, that's more than 2,250 years ago, the Hebrew Old Testament was translated into Greek. We call that translation the Septuagint, a 2,200-year-old translation project, and the work hasn't stopped since. Now here's where the story gets genuinely dramatic. The fourth unique quality of the Bible is its survival. In the ancient world, texts were written on fragile materials, papyrus, animal skins, clay tablets. They deteriorated, they burned, they were lost. Most ancient literature has survived only in tiny fragments, if at all. For Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, we have about 10 surviving manuscripts. The oldest copy is from 900 years after Caesar wrote it. For Plato's writings, we have around 7 manuscripts. For the works of Aristotle, similar numbers. For the New Testament alone, we have over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, plus thousands more in Latin, Coptic, Syriac, and other languages. The total manuscript evidence for the New Testament exceeds 25,000 documents, making it the most attested ancient document in history, by a massive margin. Princeton University's former chair of New Testament studies, Bruce Metzger, one of the world's foremost textual critics, stated, "The wealth of materials for the New Testament is embarrassing in its abundance. An embarrassment of riches. That's what the manuscript evidence is. But physical survival is only part of the story. The Bible has also survived relentless persecution. In 303 AD, the Roman Emperor Diocletian issued an edict ordering all churches to be torn down, all Bibles to be burned, and all Christians to lose their civil rights. He was absolutely determined to destroy Christianity. 25 years later, his successor, the Emperor Constantine, issued an order to produce 50 copies of the Bible at government expense. Diocletian tried to bury it. Constantine paid to copy it. History has a sharp sense of irony. The French philosopher Voltaire, one of the most brilliant skeptics of the 18th century, declared before his death in 1778 that within 100 years Christianity would be swept from existence and would pass into history. Within 50 years of Voltaire's death, the Geneva Bible Society was using his printing press in his house to produce stacks of Bibles. The Bible has survived the Roman Empire. It has survived the Enlightenment. It has survived the brutality of totalitarian regimes from ancient Babylon to Soviet Russia. As H.L. Hastings put it, the hammers have worn out. The anvil is still there. The anvil endures. Now let's talk about something that I think is genuinely astonishing, the Bible's prophetic accuracy. Every major world religion has sacred texts, but here is something that sets the Bible completely apart from every other religious text in history. The Bible contains specific, falsifiable, historical predictions about the future, not vague oracular statements, not fortune cookie wisdom. Specific, detailed, historically verifiable predictions, written centuries before the events they describe. Let me give you a few examples. Micah chapter 5 verse 2, written around 700 BC, predicted that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, not Jerusalem, not Rome, Bethlehem, a small insignificant town in Judea. Isaiah 53, written 700 years before the crucifixion of Jesus, describes in stunning detail a servant who would be pierced, who would suffer in silence, who would bear the sins of many, and who would see life beyond his suffering. And then there are the prophecies about nations and cities. Tyre, in Ezekiel 26, was predicted to be thrown into the sea and never rebuilt, fulfilled by Alexander the Great in 332 BC, in a way so specific it reads like a news report written in advance. Here is the challenge. No other religion's sacred text contains this kind of prophetic track record. The Quran contains no specific predictive prophecies. The Book of Mormon contains none. The Hindu Vedas contain none. Peter Stoner, a mathematician, calculated the probability of any one person fulfilling just 8 of the messianic prophecies by chance, 1 in 10 to the 17th power. To visualize that, cover the entire state of Texas 2 feet deep in silver dollars, mark just one, blindfold a man, and have him pick it. Jesus fulfilled more than 300. The sixth dimension is the Bible's unparalleled influence on literature and art. Northrop Frye was one of the 20th century's most respected literary critics, not a theologian, not a pastor. He wrote in his landmark work, Anatomy of Criticism, "The Bible has had an influence on Western literature that exceeds that of any other single source." And he later wrote that students of English literature who don't know the Bible will simply misread most of what they study. Think about the literature you may know: Shakespeare, Milton, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, T.S. Eliot, William Faulkner, Toni Morrison. None of them can be understood without understanding the biblical worldview that shaped them. The German poet Heinrich Heine, no friend of organized religion, captured it beautifully in 1830. Sunrise and sunset, promise and fulfillment, birth and death, the whole drama of humanity is contained in it. It is, as he called it, the book of books. And finally, the Bible's transformative influence on civilization itself. Consider what this book has produced. The hospital system as we know it emerged from Christian institutions motivated by the biblical call to care for the sick. The university system, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, was founded on the conviction that all truth is God's truth, rooted in biblical theology. The abolition of slavery, William Wilberforce in Britain, the abolitionists in America, was driven by biblical convictions about the dignity of every human being made in the image of God. The civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr.'s entire moral framework was deeply, explicitly biblical. The New Encyclopedia Britannica states, "The Bible has brought its conception of God, the universe, and mankind into the mainstream of Western languages, and through these languages into the thought of Western man." The book that began with 2 people in a garden has literally shaped the world in which you and I live today. Philip Schaff, the great 19th century church historian, made this extraordinary observation. This Jesus of Nazareth, without money and arms, conquered more millions than Alexander, Caesar, Mohammed, and Napoleon. Without science and learning, he shed more light on things human and divine than all philosophers and scholars combined. Without the eloquence of school, he spoke such words of life as were never spoken before or since, and produced effects which lie beyond the reach of orator or poet. He never wrote a line, and yet he has set more pens in motion and furnished themes for more sermons, orations, discussions, learned volumes, works of art, and songs of praise than the whole army of great men of ancient and modern times. So where does all of this leave us? I want to close with a story. The author Josh McDowell tells of a time when a sales representative came to his home to sell him an encyclopedia set, a collection of the greatest works of Western thought. And McDowell issued this challenge: pick any 10 authors from your collection, from the same profession, the same time period, the same place, the same language, dealing with the same controversial subject. Will they agree? The salesman paused, then said no. McDowell replied, "What would you get?" He answered immediately, "A chaotic mess. And yet, 40 authors, 3 continents, 3 languages, 1,500 years, widely different backgrounds and circumstances, and one coherent, unified message. Now, I want to be honest with you. None of what we've covered today proves the Bible is the Word of God. I want to be intellectually honest about that. But here is what it does prove. The Bible demands to be taken seriously. It is unique in its unity, its circulation, its translation history, its survival, its prophetic accuracy, its literary influence, and its civilization-shaping power. President Theodore Roosevelt once said, "A thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education." That's coming from a Harvard graduate and one of history's most intellectually voracious presidents. My challenge to you, whether you're a longtime believer, a curious skeptic, or someone who's never opened a Bible in your life, is this: read it, not as a duty, not out of guilt. Read it the way you'd read any book that someone told you was the most extraordinary document in human history. Read it with your questions, read it with your doubts, read it with your intellect fully engaged, and see what happens. Because the evidence suggests that this book is not just another ancient text collecting dust on a library shelf. It is either the most elaborate and inexplicable literary coincidence in human history, or it is exactly what it claims to be. If this video gave you something to think about, share it with someone who's been asking hard questions. Leave a comment below. I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts, your objections, your questions. And if you want to go deeper, the next video in this series looks at something even more fascinating: the manuscript evidence for the Bible. Why scholars are more confident in its historical reliability than in any other ancient document. That's a conversation I can't wait to have with you. Until then, keep asking the hard questions. Truth isn't afraid of them.